All right, our guest this week is probably best known for one play, and we'll get to all that when he joins us here in a second. But he was a part of a lot of great teams at UCF. He had a lot of big moments, but he will forever be known for one thing, and all Knight fans love him for it. And we're happy to have former UCF kicker and punter Javier Beorlegui in the show with us this week. Javier, first off, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Sons of UCF.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Always a pleasure to catch up. I know we had a chance to talk to you about a year ago. We did a special on the 20th anniversary of the game, so we're always good to catch back up with you. But we didn't get a chance to really dive in with you back then on a lot of UCF stuff. So really interested to hear a lot of your stories, and kind of want to start here. How did you end up at UCF? I mean, obviously you were a kicker, punter, a quote unquote specialist, right? How did you end up at UCF, right, and what was that whole recruiting process like for you?
Well, it was interesting because I never even thought about kicking in high school. I was a soccer player since I was a little kid. I played football in junior high, and I was a big kid, so I played defensive tackle and defensive end. And when I got to high school, because I was playing two different club soccer teams plus, I was playing one club soccer team plus our high school team. So I was just going to stick with soccer when I hit high school. And we had a meeting my freshman year going into like sophomore year for the varsity team. I was one of a few players that made varsity, and we were meeting the coaches and everything. And next door, the football team was warming up, I guess, for practice. And the head coach comes over from the football team and says, "Hey, we need a kicker. Anybody that wants to kick, come on over here and give it a shot." And I was like, "Man, I'm not doing that. I'm going to embarrass myself in front of the whole football team." And I just, started going to high school. And a couple of my buddies wanted to do it, so I sat there and watched them kick. And the high school coach saw me sitting there, and he says, "Hey, why don't you give it a shot?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good." He's like, "We can't do any worse than them." And I had a pretty strong leg, even in as a kid. So I kicked the ball. I kicked it further than everybody consistently. And he goes, "Well, congratulations, you're our starting kicker for the team." So I go home that night, and I tell my parents, like, "How was your first soccer meeting?" And I was like, "Great, I'm on the football team." And I said, "How was that?" So that started the process of just me doing it for fun. I didn't think I could get college out of it. I was really good. And then probably by my going to junior year, I started getting letters from universities, and I started getting recruited pretty heavily because I was one of the best in the county, that side of the state. And UCF came knocking towards my senior year. They didn't need a kicker. They had Fred Wazewski at the time. Chad Downey was the punter, I guess, and kicker. And they had a transfer, I think, from NC State to be the punter. And they just knew me as a field goal kicker because that's all I did in high school. But I could also punt, and I did that pretty consistently at practice. With our punter, Dave Sanger, we'd go back and forth. And so I played in the county all-star game. Coach Fountain, he actually came to watch the game. And during the game, I was the field goal kicker for obviously our side of the county. The punter for our team didn't do a good job. It was raining, and he had a couple bad shanks. Well, the coach for our county team, for the all-county team, was my head coach from high school. And he knew I could punt. So he said, "Hey, you're going to go in next because this guy's not doing a good job." I said, "Okay." I went in there next. I never punted in a game. I kicked field goals and kickoffs all through high school. And I was at my goal line getting ready to do the punt. We had backed all the way to our goal line. And I caught it, and I just kicked it as hard as I could, and it was a missile. It took off like a rocket. No hang time at all. It was just like a line drive bullet. Outkicked the coverage. It bounced because it was a line drive, and it rolled almost to the other end zone. So it was almost a full field punt in front of everybody. And I was shocked myself. Everyone kind of went crazy. And Coach Fountain from UCF happened at that game, and he didn't know I could punt. So after the game, he approached the coach and was like, "Hey, I didn't know how we could punt. We're looking for a punter now because the transfer from NC State didn't work out." And he goes, "Yeah, Javier's a great punter, blah, blah, blah," talked me up. So then the coach wanted a tape of me punting. So me and my dad went to our football field at Marathon High, and we had a bag of balls, and I basically marked a cone in the end zone, a cone at 50-yard line, and I just consistently kicked punts, and I had good hang time. I worked on getting the ball up, but my dad never turned the video off. He just consistently kept filming me punting and coming back, even the ones I didn't hit so good. And we sent the tape to UCF, and because of that tape, they said, plus I knew I could kick off and do field goals, they gave me a full scholarship.
Describe UCF back in those days. Obviously, if you're in campus now, you Memory Mall, you got the on-campus stadium, you got all that good jazz. That's not the
Yeah,
UCF you walked into in 1998. Describe the
right.
facilities and the setup when you were there.
When we went there, it was a little bit less fancy than it is now, obviously. Wayne Dench was shared. It was a very small workout area. We had like 4 rooms plus the coach's office, and we shared obviously the facilities with every other sport that was there. And our 2 practice fields were right there, and there was one like a downhill slope, and it was just more like it was similar to like a high school atmosphere with the kind of equipment being used and fields and stuff, but it was a collegiate level program. But everything was being built at the time. So when they recruited me and actually signed me and brought us in, they showed us the plans for everything that they have now, pretty much. And they even said it's going to take years before it gets to that level, but they're already planning to take it to that level to have the facilities and everything. But yeah, back then it wasn't as nice as it was, but we kind of liked it in a sense because we were that kind of a crew, the football players. We were, all fighters, and we were a tight unit. I think that bonded us more, if that makes sense. Just kind of like being always together and fighting for everything that we had, and even in our training facilities, working out and doing all that stuff at Wayne Dench. I loved it. So even though they got super nice equipment now and nice facilities, it was a great time.
You mentioned they put you on scholarship right away coming out of high school. I don't think that was that common back then, especially at UCF.
I was actually the first one ever to be signed kicker out of high school. I didn't know that for UCF until I got the full ride and I went there, and then they did a media came to the first day when we were getting our equipment, doing orientation, and they came to an interview with me and said, how do you feel being the first kicker ever signed out of high school? They were walk-ons before that. You basically walk on, obviously prove yourself in the first year, second year, and after that they assign you. So I was the first one they signed directly out of high school as a kicker. And it wasn't very common back then either. I got recruited University of Florida when Spurrier was there, Miami, a couple of big name teams, but they didn't sign anybody out of high school. Spurrier was like against it back in those days. He believed every kicker should walk on. Oh, my lights just went out. Every kicker should walk on and then earn their spot and then eventually get a scholarship. But at the time they could do that and get 20, 30 kickers out there. Coach Cruz, that was his first or second year actually head coaching, and he understood. He said he wanted a really good kicker right out the gate out of high school, and he wanted to recruit one. So he was the brainchild behind that, and then the reason why I got a full ride right away.
Yeah, because I think even after Cruz, I don't think O'Leary ever signed a kicker to a scholarship right away either. For years after.
No, he did not.
Yep. You were the only one for a while.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of coaches have that mentality. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say a lot of coaches at the time had that mentality. They thought that, we can just get a walk on, they'll work out, and they did have good walk-ons. We had a lot of good walk-ons. Even after I got signed, every year we had great guys coming out, and they were good kickers. But I think as it progressed, and now we're looking at 2022, and obviously you're seeing a lot of people understand more, I think, how important kickers are, and how much they mean in a game, especially to be consistent, I think. So to get what you pay for type thing.
Yeah. What's scarier, as a kicker or as a punter? Punter, you got the whole defense charging at you. You got to catch the ball, kick it, or a kicker trying to hit a field goal, game winner, or a quick one at the end of the half. What's a little scarier for you?
For doing both, like I did, to me, punting was easier. Not that the skill was easier, just the pressure wasn't as great. Because obviously I was dependent on for field goals and extra points to score. And if I didn't, obviously our team is down points now. So the pressure, I think, was a little more intense. Whereas punting, even if you don't get a decent punt off, it's still not something that's completely detrimental as not putting points on the board for your team, in my opinion. So I thought doing the both in the game, punting was a little bit more relaxed for me than field goal kicking.
I don't remember. Did they have you doing the rugby style back then?
No rugby style. Nope, no rugby style.
No.
It was just an adjustment every time the leg swing and how we would kick field goals versus doing a punt. Everything was a little different. They didn't want me to do all three after I got signed. They signed me as a punter, and it was redshirted the first few games, and then our punter wasn't doing so hot. So Coach Cruz, I think we played Toledo at Toledo, and he said, "You're going in next punt. I'm done with this." I'm like, "All right." So right then I was off a red shirt my freshman year, a few games in, and I hit a really good punt, and that kind of stuck. And then Fred, or Wazowski, our kicker, he got hurt halfway through the season. He was doing field goals and extra points, but he couldn't do kickoffs. So our kickoff person wasn't doing so hot either. So they came and said, "Hey, we know you can do kickoffs. Now we want you to do kickoffs." I'm like, "No problem." So I did kickoffs and punts, finish out the season. And then going into the next year, they actually signed a kicker right out of high school again. But this time it's just do field goals and kickoff. They just wanted me to punt. They thought I'd be better if I just focused and concentrated on one thing only. And I went to Coach Cruz and I said, if I really like to do all three, if I beat this kicker out, can I do all three? And he said, absolutely. We're going to play the best person, obviously, during the camp and training. He says, if you beat him out, you get to start. I said, you got it. So the kicker came in, and I think it was Gabe Levitt, and we competed, and I ended up inching out ahead of him. So I ended up starting field goal, kickoffs, and punts, and I kind of held that position all the way up until the very end.
That 98 team that you were on, Javier, was one of the best in UCF. Obviously finishes 9-2, a couple brutal losses that season. Does that Auburn loss still haunt you?
Absolutely. A lot of those close games did. Georgia, Auburn. We made about four at the end, but I think at the time, because it weighed so heavy on us, that with that group of guys, and like I talked about earlier, that the bond we had and the camaraderie we had, we wanted it so bad. It's tough to explain and put into words, but every time we played those big 1A opponents, we truly believed we were going to win. There was no doubt. We didn't go in there thinking, let's just try to have a good showing and not get killed. We win that game. Everyone had that mindset in the locker room. We were going to win. And when we didn't, we had those close losses like Auburn and Georgia. There's guys in the locker room just, break down crying and just upset, because they gave it everything they had and they wanted it. So those definitely, we remember every single one of them, the guys that I played with, and we talk about it occasionally that, man, we were this close, but we made for it at the end, but we wanted to get it for the seniors that were there, for the juniors that were there early on. So that way they could leave knowing that they got that big 1A win under their belt before they were done playing football.
Well, how mad were you guys in 98? Again, 9-2 season. Today, if anyone goes 9-2, they're in like a New Year's Six bowl, right? 9-2. You guys didn't even get to a bowl game. How pissed off were you guys at the fact that no bowl love for you that season?
No bowl love the whole time I was there, but it was a lot less bowls too back then. Obviously, the opportunities were a lot less. I think that season we were very close to getting to the Hula Bowl. I think Hawaii Bowl.
Yeah,
and I think we got beat out by somebody else, but we were independent obviously back then, but we're still making a name for ourselves. But yeah, it was definitely frustrating because that was the top goal for us at the end of the season was to play that last game and get a bowl game under our belt, which unfortunately with my group and me, we never got a chance to.
Well, you mentioned that Georgia game, so that's an interesting point in your career. Obviously, for people who don't know, it's the burglary between the hedges is what they call it. There was a phantom PI call late in the game on a play, but you had an interesting point in the game. You had missed a kick earlier, and so it's a fourth down opportunity. We would have essentially lined you up for a 37-yard field goal, and Kruzek decided to go for it instead. Obviously, things don't go well. We end up getting backed up, and we lose that game. Looking back on it now, how disappointed were you in not getting a chance to kick? Did you say something to Cruz on the sideline? Did you give him a bit of a what for after he would let you in there?
No, actually, when leading up to that, I'm one of those people that if I miss a kick or field goal, extra point, whatever, I want to get right back out there and hit the very next one. I rarely throughout my career missed two in a row, like field goals or even like a fluke extra point or something. I rarely missed more than one consecutively. And that's why I was consistent. I always played because I had a real good mentality for it, but I wanted to get right back out there, not just to redeem myself, but also let my teammates know that I got you. This ain't going to happen again. Matter of fact, one of my longest field goals, I think it was like 48, 49 yards against Georgia Tech. It was the first field goal of the game. I missed one. And I think it was the first game of the season or second game. And I went to the sideline and I said, I'm not missing an effing bleep field goal the rest of this damn season. I said, I'm making the rest of these. And I went in the very next one and I blasted the uprights 49. And that's the mentality I had going into obviously those big games, Georgia. And it was an extra point. And for some reason, I think I thumped it. I don't remember if it hit the bar or if I missed it. And I was devastated. I'm like, man, I'm not missing again. That last drive going on the field, Kruzek didn't have any doubt. We lined up like we were going to do it. So I ran up to the sideline. We were ready to go in. And he decided to go with a different play to think either get a closer field goal or to see if he can get 7. I can't remember what the mindset was, but there wasn't doubt for me or the guys to get this shot. And I even said, I'm ready to go in, coach. I'll do it. But unfortunately, it just didn't play out that way. Even after the game, a lot of my fellow players and stuff came with me and were like, man, we were really hoping you could get that shot for redemption, number one, to get the win for us. And I said, me too. Because up to that point, I still hadn't kicked a game-winning field goal until Alabama in my high school career or college. I never got put in that position to either you make it, we win, you miss, you go home. I've had games where the points I scored were the outcome of winning, or like an extra point or a field goal early on could have gotten us the win or a tie, but never the last seconds to kick one through to bring it home for the guys.
The sound of the ball hitting off the upright has to be the worst noise in the world to you, right? It's just devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. Watching is the worst, actually. Because I'm watching it, I know I didn't hit it right. So kickers know, man, when you hit that ball good, the follow through, you need to look up and you see it drift, and you're just like, man, I didn't get a solid hit on it. So watching is the worst because you know what's about to happen.
Yeah. We've talked to Kruzek and we talked to Vic Penn about that Georgia game. I forget which one of them told us that maybe you were battling an injury at that part in the season. Was there any part of you that wasn't 100% going into that game? Or were you sick or something? I forget what the story was.
I was. I don't like to make excuses for it because I was playing. So I never used that as a reason because I was able to hit that extra point regardless of what I was going through. I had a really bad flu the night before. I got about 2 hours of sleep, and I had broken my pinky. An old injury, and I broke it again in warm-ups, catching punts, got a little out of it, and it hit my pinky, and I broke it. So I didn't get to punt that whole game. It was Ryan Flynn at the time who was my backup, but that was his very first game starting was against Georgia. So I didn't get to punt that game either. But with kicking in that situation, in my opinion, that had nothing to do. That's just them being nice. I'm telling you straight up that had nothing to do with the reason why I missed that kick. So a lot of those guys played injured. A lot of those guys played sick. You know, we don't just get to call in and say, hey, I can't today. You play. So, and they're able to perform just like I should have that game. So I don't use that as an excuse. I don't bring it up, but they do all the time. I was going through that, but that had nothing to do with the reason why I missed it.
So it's not the reason. That wasn't a factor of why Kruzek decided to go for it because of your pinky. Obviously, it's just him just being what he is, a gambler, a risk taker.
My pinky looks nice and beautiful. That one, and that's what it's supposed to look like. So I don't know if that gives you an idea. So I always have a little deformity in it, but I've broken this one a couple of times, which is weird. But yeah, it had nothing to do with it, and that didn't affect my kicks at all during the game. I just wasn't able to punt.
Gotcha. Well, this is the first time we've used this video where now people have to come and watch the video to see what you're talking about, because some people would just listen to this. Now they have to come on here and watch the video to see your pinky, because that thing is a little freaky. Can you see that thing again? It makes it's like a question mark shape.
Yeah, that's me pointing it straight. So
wow,
there goes my lights again.
It doesn't hurt at all, still, right? There's no lingering effects. It's just shaped weird.
No lingering effects. Just shaped weird. I can make a fist, and it works fine. Just looks weird.
Javi, that year you went 10 of 20 on field goals, if I have the stats right. If you were a kicker today, would a coach stick with you? Do you think that kickers today get that kind of leash, or do you think you'd have been done after that season?
It's a good question. I don't know, to be honest with you. That was a rough year, obviously, but it's hard to explain. Coach Cruz, like I said, but the coach knows how the mindset of the player is. So he knew everything that was going on that field and in practice and how the players are playing. He knew my mindset of my confidence was there. I never went out. I didn't not have confidence when I went and kicked, and I believed that I was going to perform well regardless of the outcome. And he had faith and confidence in me. So I think the combination of those two things is why he stuck with me. Nowadays, I don't know. I mean, most of these big universities obviously have a couple of good kickers in the wind waiting for their opportunity. So in that situation, maybe 2022, maybe someone else would have gotten a shot over me. I'm not sure. But the key is obviously remaining consistent. And that was probably the worst, I think, statistic the year I had for field goals. But then I made it up in the summer, trained, and got my accuracy a lot better. And that was when they were really prying for me to not do all three. And they thought that was something that was affecting me because I'd go right to that, to punting, back to it. So you kick about 80 or 90 balls a practice. And I was kind of doubling that because I was doing punts and kicks. And they thought for a while that was the reasoning of why it wasn't working out for me as well kicking. But I didn't believe so. I still think I could do all three, and that wasn't an excuse for me.
Yeah, take us into training for a second in that off season. We know, like, you think about like a running back or a receiver, right? You run routes, you maybe lift weights, you work on your speed. As a kicker, what do you do to improve? How do you improve your accuracy? Are there drills you're doing? Are you lifting weights? What were you doing in that off season to make you better for that next season?
Coach Matt Rock was my kicking coach, and he did a lot of great drills for consistency wise. One of them was basically a kicker you'll go almost to the back of the goal line and you'll come out just a little bit and you'll kick field goals that way. And it's hard to explain, but it makes the uprights almost the size of, 5 feet wide. So you're coming off the back of the goal line just a little bit out a little bit and you're kicking. It really concentrates on, you need to be dead center, obviously, or you're going to miss, versus having a lot of room to kick on the regular size field goal. So we did that quite a bit. Just really concentrating your technique. You hear a lot of people say that, a kick is like a golf swing, and that's pretty accurate because it's all technique. And kicking is 98% mental, maybe 2% physical. Every kicker will tell you that. So a lot of it has to do with concentrating your technique, remaining focused, and not trying to let anything get into your head that's going to mess you up.
Do you guys practice at all faking like the penalty, especially as a punter? People running into the punter, you keep your leg up, you practice getting hit and embellishing. And do you ever remember getting any flags called because of your acting skills?
No, we don't practice that. That's a tough one to practice, but I have been hit quite a few times back then. I think I got stuffed at the University of Florida in the back of their end zone. That one hurt a little bit. Clemson got me not Clemson, Virginia Tech, who had crazy special teams. They got me a couple times. It's usually the bigger 1A schools they got through occasionally, but no, I didn't get many blocks, I don't think, throughout my career, other than a couple from a big 1A team, but no, there's no practicing in that.
Yeah, special teams, we just saw how big of a role that is in the game. And the playoffs the other night, San Francisco and Green Bay. I mean, people like to talk about special teams as the third wheel, and they don't really mention it as much, but it's a huge part of the game. It can change everything. It can change the whole season.
Absolutely. And I always root for the kicker, regardless of what team they're playing for, who team I'm rooting for, because I know the weight that's on their shoulders. But a lot of people don't realize that until obviously the game comes down to it. But if you look at the totality of it, of how many points a lot of those kickers scored during that game, they were the leading scorers. And that surprised a couple people that I was talking to, like, oh yeah, I guess that is right. He hit 4 field goals, right? And I was like, yeah, he scored the most points out of that game. If it wasn't for his line, his holder, and his snapper, and him, just a little breakdown of the chain with that core group, they don't hit that 3 points, and then the game outcome changes. But yeah, special teams has a huge effect on games both ways for errors and obviously performing well. It dictates the games, and I think it did almost every single game this past weekend. It did that for him.
Well, you're telling me it's your team. What's your team? The Dolphins, the Jaguars? Who do you root for?
Bucks are my team.
The Bucks?
So
a kick coming down against the Bucks, you're rooting for the kicker? I can't believe that.
I still do, believe it or not. I don't want the guy to miss because that's going to happen. I still want my team to win. But again, I gotta wish well for him, because again, I know that situation, and I feel it. So if regardless of the situation, if it comes down to a kick, I want the guy to make it.
All right, in the 2000 season, you guys played in a little game in Tuscaloosa, Alabama that turned out to be pretty significant for you, but we'll get to that in a second. But take me on the field before the game in warm-ups. Were you feeling good that day? I mean, I know obviously before a game you go out and you try to figure out which side you're kicking better at, maybe what your distance is that day. Take us on the field before the game. Was that one of those games where you just felt like you were kind of in a zone, or how was your warm-up that particular Saturday?
It kind of started at the hotel, to be honest with you. I mean, our group was such a tight group with that team. We were laughing, having a good time, being serious, but just the night before, like preparing, like the excitement, and we're going to go out there and give it everything we got, and we're going to have a good time doing it. And that kind of carried over to the field when we drove over and the warm-ups. Everyone just kind of had a good vibe about that game. I mean, we always thought we were going to win, like I said earlier, but that game, I think it was just, we just felt something, and the warm-ups were just meant a little bit more, and everything, the pregame and everything. It's hard to explain, but everyone was focused, and everyone performed amazing, and that was the result.
When we had you on back about a year or so ago to talk about that game, you told us a story about a kicking tee that Coach Kruzak had no clue about until you broke it to him in that day. Can you retell that story real quickly and the story with the kicking tee in that Alabama game?
Yeah, since the statute of limitations erased, I think, because of the theft that I committed in Tuscaloosa. But yes, there was we forgot to pack our kickoff tee. Well, we only had one, and it was a black kickoff tee designed for soccer style kickers. And I was like, man, that's not good. We're playing obviously homecoming at Alabama. I need a kickoff tee. So I went over to the kickers in the other field, and they had 8 kickoff tees. They had 7 kickers, and they just had all the state-of-the-art stuff. And I remember going to their equipment manager, and I think their kicking coach, and me and Coach Rock came over there, and I said, hey, do you mind if we borrow one of your soccer-style kickoff tees? I see you got a bunch. Unfortunately, we forgot to pack one. And they said, well, we'll see what we can do. They came back with the toe tee, which is the orange tee with the big spike blocks on it, sticking straight up, and you cannot kick a football soccer style in that tee. And they probably had a good laugh giving that to us and thought that was going to screw us during the game. And so I took it back. I said, man, this is messed up. So I put the orange tee on the side. They left the kickoff tees out on the field because their equipment managers picked them up for them. So I went out, ran to the field like I was jogging, still trying to warm up and get my legs loose. And I took a knee next to one of the black kickoff tees for soccer style. And I act like I was stretching, and I put the kickoff tee in my helmet, and I ran back onto our side of the field, and I used that the rest of the game. And I took it home with me too. So,
do you still have that tee?
Unfortunately, I don't. During my youth and moving, I don't know where it is. I lost it somewhere, unfortunately, but I wish I took better care of it and kept it, because that's a funny story.
That'd be a big part of UCF memorabilia. I know it's not involved in the actual field goal, but still, from that day.
If they wanted it, I'd give it. Yeah, if they wanted something like that, I'd give it to them. If they, it's like a funny story type thing, but I don't have it, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would definitely give it to the UCF. But it was something I didn't think was a big deal, but everyone thought it was hilarious when I told them. But obviously, we hid that from our coaches.
Well, you are a police officer now, right? So are you just trying to get rid of the evidence, or?
Yeah, that's why I said. I think statute of limitation for petty theft is expired, so I am safe according to the law. Unless they find some loophole in Alabama and I got a petty theft warrant, they're going to write for me.
Well, yeah, Alabama takes that stuff serious. They found out that's the reason they lost a game 20 years ago. They may come looking for you. So.
Yeah, they have a confession now. That's right. They got me.
So take us down to the last few minutes of that game. Obviously, we're driving. What's going through your head? I mean, we're setting it up for you. You've had the chances before, and years before. We talk about the games, close games that we just missed. Now it's all going to be sitting on you. Put us in your head for that last drive as we're going down the field.
I'd been waiting for that moment for that point close to 7 years from the time I started kicking. And I thought it was going to come down to it. And I'm like, this is actually going to happen. There's been a lot of times where just at the end, we either didn't get in field goal range or there was a turnover or something, but this was happening. And I was ready. And I knew that I had to go out there and do my job. The number one thing, like I said earlier, with kicking, you have to block everything out. I'm in the kicking nets warming up. Their fans were running down to the sidelines, wherever the net was, screaming and cursing at me. trying to get in my head, trying to get me to mess up, which I was used to at every away game. They always love picking on the kicker, especially the kicker with the crazy last name like mine. They loved using that, but they were all screaming and cursing. I just blocked them all out. And when it was time for me to go out there, I went out there. I knew Mike Hedge, who was my snapper, Jimmy Frizzell, my holder, and my line were going to perform amazing. I had so much confidence in those guys. I knew that ball was going to be put down perfect, and I was just going to have to do like I usually do. It's a good leg swing, kick it through, and it was going to go in. I went out there. They called a timeout to try to ice me, which is a kicker's dream, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. When you call a timeout to ice them, I wouldn't say 100%, but almost 100% of kickers all want that to happen. And a lot of the coaches don't know that, and a lot of the players don't know that. Because when you run out into the field, it's timed. So you have a specific amount of time, obviously, to huddle, run out there, get in formation, line up, balls put down, snap, the play clock. So if something's off, like for some reason the spot's not looking good, or you didn't take the right amount of steps back, or the wind changes and it's like a right to left, and you thought it was a right to left, and it was just going the opposite direction. Little things like that. You have all this time to go out there and just make sure everything's perfect. Spot's going to be good. I can stare at the uprights. I can practice 5 or 10 leg swings, know how my hips are going to end up. I get a feel for the wind out there, the positioning. So you're not going to make me more nervous than I already am at that point, because it's impossible. Either going to be nervous and you're going to perform, or it's already in your head anyways. So if you watch a lot of professional games, even collegiate, a lot of the times when they call a timeout nowadays to ice them, the kicker usually they'll miss it right before they call the timeout. Like the ref didn't catch it quick enough, or the ball was played in the field, and you'll see a miss, but then they come back after the timeout and they make it, because they know exactly, I know exactly what I did wrong. I got to, I pushed it more to the right when I should have probably brought it a little more to the left. But I like that. So they did that, called the timeout. Then I got to get set. My line got set, and we put it through the uprights.
Is there ever a time you were expecting a team to ice you? They had the timeout, and then they just snapped them. All of a sudden, it's time to kick, and then it kind of messes you up, throws you off a little bit?
I've only been called timeout to ice me a few times. It was usually before the halves. We kicked the field goal right before the half ended, and then the coach would use his timeout for the other field. That was the only one I got for a game winner, because that was my only time I ever went in to kick a game-winning field goal ever, was that game. So that was the first time I got iced they tried to ice me for a game-winning field goal. So I've had them before, but it was usually right before the half with a few seconds left. And they called the timeout to try to screw me up. Never worked, though.
I would say less than 1% of anybody who is listening or alive right now knows the feeling of going back to college, having won the biggest game for your team single-handedly, right? Take us through that week on campus. Are people just mobbing you everywhere? Are you getting standing ovations, girls throwing themselves at you? What was Javier Beorlegui's next week at campus like?
Well, it was pretty wild, to be honest with you, because nobody knew who the hell I was. You could see me. I mean, I was a big guy, but I wasn't like an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, or the star quarterback walking around campus where everyone knew who they were. I was a kicker and a punter. With a helmet on, you can't tell who I am. So I wouldn't always run around campus unnoticed. I remember the very next morning after our night celebrating, a bunch of friends of mine went to, I don't remember, we had breakfast. I think it was like Burger King breakfast or something. And we went in there, and I'm looking at the menu with a couple of my friends, and one of the kids behind the counter goes, "Hey, that's the kicker that kicked the game-winning field goal against Alabama." I'm like, "What?" And a bunch of "Hey, man, what's going on?" They're all excited and happy. And then I was in the newspaper again, because I got notoriety like that before with front page stuff. And I go to campus, I go the Subway or something on campus, and the guy gave me a free sub on them. So people noticed me. I was getting run up to for autographs on shirts and stuff. Never did this happen ever until then. So a part of me thought, man, if I had missed that kick, I thought it was kind of safe. I thought it was kind of safe because nobody knew I was a football player because of the way I looked, you know what I mean? And just my build. But I was like, I wasn't safe. So if I missed that one, I probably would have had a rough time. But I knew I was going to make it, but it was one of those things to where it was cool. And to this day, I love when people talk about it because it obviously was the best athletic achievement in my life. And that was great. And it's a memory that I always smile. And every time someone shows the video, I'll watch it like 10 times before I scroll to something else.
How many times have you made your kids watch that video?
Quite a few, to be honest with you. Quite a few. And they're just like, whatever, Dad. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, it sticks with them. I've shown them a few times. And, they think it's pretty cool. But, they're at the age of teenagers still. So, like, whatever.
Wait till you get to show the grandkids one day. That'll be great.
Right. Absolutely.
I love it.
That's right.
What did Cruz say to you after the game? I mean, obviously, we saw you guys on the show together. It seemed like you guys still have a close relationship. But was he like, "Hey, great job! I knew you could do it"? Was he like, "About time you made a kick"? What was Cruz? What was his statement to you after the game?
So, Coach, it was funny because obviously it was chaos because then we had to do the kickoff right after the field goal, so everyone was still in coaching mode after getting dogpiled and they threw a bunch of flags. So I didn't get to see him right after the game. We're running around the field like when the game was finally over. Everyone's cheering, going crazy. So I didn't see Coach Cruz until I got back in the locker room. So I went in the locker room. He just yelled, "Javi." He came running up and gave me a huge bear hug and picked me up off the ground because Coach Cruz is a pretty strong dude. And he picked me up in the air and was just like screaming, that's probably the most excited I've ever seen him after that game because he was very serious, most of the time, coach, all business, but he let down for that one and celebrated with the guys, and he was pumped. So that was my interaction with him. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that kickoff afterwards, you were on kickoff team. That return lasted what felt like 25 minutes. How exhausted were you? Did you even get close to making a tackle?
Unfortunately, no, because that would have sucked if I kick it and then I blow a tackle and he goes to the end zone. But we did a squib kick because we backed it up 15 yards because of the refs threw a bunch of penalties because we were celebrating on the field through the flags. So they didn't want me to kick it in the air, give them hang time. They want for a chance to set up a return. They want me to just kind of hit a line drive. Hopefully their lead returner didn't get it and squibbed it. But then they started doing all the laterals and they, I think they did like 2 forward laterals and, the play was over, but they were still running it, so we were like in a little bit of a panic. But fortunately, like I said, I think they threw like 1 or 2 forward laterals and that was the end of it. And eventually got
you make the tackle. So. You make the game-winning kick and get the tackle on that play. I mean, you're talking about a statue in front of the stadium, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool if I could have done that. But I was much more happy that my teammates tackled him. So, like I said, they got him. They wouldn't let him get in the end zone.
Javi, how do you look back on your UCF career? Obviously, one of the biggest games in history of UCF. But to your point earlier, you never got a chance to go to a bowl game. Obviously, you weren't always in a conference, so didn't get a chance to play for a championship. How do you look back at your time at UCF?
I absolutely loved it. I'm thankful for UCF, the coaching staff for bringing me in to let me experience that, the players I played with, and the bonds I made, and the experiences that I got to experience. Yeah, we weren't in a conference, we were independent, but we played so many high class Division I programs that I got to experience things that other big Division I universities at the time players didn't get to experience. Like I said, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Purdue, Clemson, Alabama, Syracuse, Arkansas. We played Florida State, Florida over the course of the years. Teams where, sorry, I'm turning my lights back on. Teams where I got to go into those stadiums, see that history, play those teams, and experience those experiences. It was wild, and it was pretty awesome. Just the history and getting a chance to play against a big Division I program. So even though we didn't get the bowl, I really don't care, to be honest with you. It was something that would be nice to have under our belt, but it didn't change my experience and how I feel about those 4 years I spent there.
Well, and obviously UCF in the last couple of years, really since that 2017 season, has been on an upward trajectory. How often are you able to continue to catch up with the program? Are you able to get back to games? And what are your thoughts on where UCF is now? I know I'm sure in 98, 99, you expected we'd be here at some point. How cool is it to see where UCF's ascended to in the college football world?
It's so cool to see how far they've come and how those kids are playing. Even they leave after UCF. I'm just so ecstatic. I don't get to go to home games frequently because I'm constantly with my kids' soccer games, and they're very good. My daughter and my son, and we travel. That's where all of our money and time goes. My son's at practice right now. He's in the background practicing. So we travel over the state and out of state, usually during the football season. So I do need to get back for some more home games. It's definitely on the. I got to start doing that, and like I said, I do follow everything that they do in that program, and I'm very proud that where they've come and to be a part of it and to help contribute a small part of that era of building that program from the start. I was there with those guys, and that just means a lot to me. So I'm super pumped, and like I said, this past weekend watching Gabriel Davis, watching him perform, set an NFL record. I mean, it was just so awesome for him too, but just UCF, the football program, the fans, and the university. It was so cool having that kind of performance, watching that.
So your kids are soccer players like you were. Any chance we get one of them as a legacy kicker over at UCF in a couple of years or what?
We'll see. Like I said, my son we haven't really talked about it much, but it's one of those things to where you don't need to really get into kicking until you're probably starting high school, in my opinion, because if you're playing soccer and doing what he's doing, you're strengthening your leg up quite a bit, and you can build the technique. And obviously I know quite a bit about technique and how to get to that level. So if he wants to, absolutely. But if his love's for soccer and he wants to stick with that, he'll do that. But he's pretty good, and so is my daughter. So if either of them show interest in it, I'll be more than happy to help them and guide them and coach them the best I can. So we'll see. Never say never.
Cool. Well, we know practice is wrapping up very soon here, so we're going to let you off the hook, but we got a couple of quick rapid fire questions for you. So these can be questions about music, movies, sports, anything in the whole wide world. So here is my first question for you. You mentioned the kicking tee. Do you still have the jersey from the Alabama game? And if so, where is it?
I do. It's in my house. I have all my jerseys. Well, not all of them, but I got those from that year. I got about 4 or 5 of them, but I definitely have that one still at my house, and it's hanging in my closet.
Okay. Well, yeah, we got to get that out a little bit. We got to get in the living room. Can we get that in the dining room? What do you think?
If it was up to me, absolutely. My wife, on the other hand, okay. There's only so much room on the office walls and everything else. I got plenty of memorabilia from like the Alabama game, and she played for UCF. My wife, obviously, she was captain of the girls soccer team, and she played soccer there. So we have the office is filled with her achievements, mine, and stuff like that. But yeah, the jersey is pretty big. That's definitely going in the frame eventually. I just not right now, unfortunately.
All right, you were there the same exact years Adam and I were there. We started in '98 too, just like you. So I'm going to go through a list of places. You tell me, you pick which one was better. Ready? The pub or the mill?
I would say the pub.
I think the pub too.
For me.
All right. How about Wing Shack or the Liquid Cellar?
Liquid Cellar all day.
Yeah. $2 pitchers.
Right? Thursday nights, yeah.
Absolutely. $2 pitchers, and your eyes would be watering for 3 days because of the smoke that was coming out of that place.
That's true. Devaney's or Calico Jacks?
Ooh, that's a good one. Calico Jacks for me. Calico Jacks.
All right. Howl at the Moon or Have a Nice Day Cafe?
Howl at the Moon, 100%. We'd always go
there.
That
was the football spot, right?
That was the football spot. We'd go there doing pianos, and we would be singing like a bunch of idiots and celebrating and had a good time. Howl at the Moon.
All right, so if you walked into a bar tomorrow with a shirt on that said Javier Beorlegui on it and a crowd full of UCF fans, how long before someone buys you a drink?
I don't do that, so I don't know, to be honest with you. Like I said, I don't know if anyone would recognize me. I've gained a few pounds since then, and I look old because I'm 42. So I don't even know if anyone would recognize me if they even saw me in a place. But I don't know. It'd probably have to be like an event or something, but who knows?
How about you let me borrow that jersey? I'll test it out for you. See if I get some free beers.
That's not. It'll fit you. I was probably about your size back when. It won't fit me. I'll squeeze into it and embarrass my family and my kids. So yeah.
All right. I'm friends with you on Facebook now, so I see these pictures you post of when you go fishing, and they're incredible photos you get. Your fishing skills are incredible. Give me your top 5 fish you've ever caught, or the best one.
I would say
we'll do top 5s.
I would say trophy trout that's over 30 inches. Redfish, it was over 42. Cobia that I caught in the flats a couple years ago that was pretty large, and I would say that's it because it's big snook too, about close to 40 inches I've landed before. So a lot of inshore species and those kind of fish, but those are my highlights.
You're still off Merritt Island?
Son just got done with practice. So he's in the car now. No, I'm on the west coast of Florida. I'm in the Sarasota, Bradenton area. Okay. My mom, my brother still live on the East Coast, Merritt Island. So I go back home all the time and get to see the family and stuff.
All right, we'll let you drive home after this question, Javier. Fill in the blank for me. The best kicker in UCF history is blank.
Like the best kicker in UCF history. God, it's a rough one because there's been too many greats.
Yeah.
I can't say me. That's a tough one. I can't even say a name, to be honest with you. There's so many greats. We had like so many. Charlie Pierce, Fred Wazewski, me. We had Matt Prater. We've had so many. And then we've had, I can't say a specific name because to say that they're better than the other one, that's what I'm going through my brain. You'd have to have like certain things, but each one of them has their own achievements and whether they're like the highest scoring at UCF, where they got the kid game-winning field goals for big significant wins. So the categories are so spread out with achievements that a lot of those guys did that you can't say one's better than the other. So I really can't say a specific one. I think they're all great. They all did a great job.
Do you guys have like a kicker text message thread to you and Prater and Matt Wright and Katoy and all that? Do you guys have
Matt
like
Wright is another great kicker.
Do you guys have like a kicker text message thread on a Saturday when the game's on or no?
No, actually I have. I still keep in contact with guys who were there when I was there. Mike Hedge occasionally, Ryan Flynn, Phil, a lot of guys that I played with during that time. We keep in touch, but guys that came before me or after me, not so much. But I love them, I support them, and anytime I see them do good, I'll still shoot them a message if I can, like on Facebook or something, and say proud of you, great kick. But that's pretty much the extent of it.
Well, Javier, you were obviously a UCF legend, one of the biggest moments in UCF history. And I can tell you this, the next time, if we ever see you out, Mike will buy you a beer for sure. We can guarantee that. My friend.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much, man.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Have a good one. Charge on.
Thanks, Javi.
Charge on. Have a good day.